We are not Africans. Second installment. Dua to the Most High, the only one, the source of all knowledge, the Absolute from whom we all emanate. Dua to the sacred ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. Amat Hotep, divine peace and blessings to all who care to listen. This lecture is dedicated to my ancestral giants, mainly to my transition mother and transition wife, who are one of my greatest spiritual defenders. And oh, what a privilege it is to have warriors in the spirit who make us lie down in green pastures. For I had to lose my mother and my wife in this lower dimension in order to fully embrace my Africanness, in order to reawaken my African spirit. But what I lost in the physical realm, I gained in the spiritual realm, Ashe. See, what we erroneously call death, what in reality is transitioning, is often the greatest opportunity to grow into higher consciousness. Dua to my dearly beloved mother, Holy Mama Binti Danke Samuels, who interceded relentlessly to keep the African flame alight in my soul, and continues to anoint my head with oil every day and sees to it that my cup overflows. And dua to my dearly beloved ancestral wife, Alice Saleh Bangura Jallo, who tilled the African soil in me unabatedly, and as I resisted, so she was resolute in planting the African seed. And she continues to prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Ashe. I repeat, we're not Africans. My dear people, I implore you to lend me your mind just for a few minutes, that I may deposit some truth that will restore us to our rightful position in the global arena of this human experience. And I want you to hear me slow. No Western, no Arabian, no Asian religion, or philosophy, or education, or social or economic policies, or ideology will save us from the hell we catch from Europeans and Arabs. Take it or let it alone. And you can be as Europeanized or as Arabized as you care to be, but that will not change your condition as a people. That will not change your troubles as a people. That will not elevate your position from the bottom of every human totem pole on planet Earth. My beloved, I exhort you to love truth as much as it hurts, and to hate lies even if they help you. You see, I know that a speaker of truth has no friends, but that's all right by me. It was Baba Marcus Mosiah Garvey that once said, "A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." He was right. A tree without a root is not a tree. An African edifice minus an African spirit is an incomplete African, an abbreviated African, an unfinished being. Alas, up to this day, what we still do not realize or comprehend or understand is that to adopt the values, the religions, the ideologies of Europeans and Arabians is to be transformed into their image. It is to sanction our servitude status to Arabs and Europeans. And you say, well, how do you define an African? An African is one who possesses an African spirit, one who is animated by an African spirit, a spiritual and physiological representation of African ancestors spanning millions of years, a spiritual being manifesting an African ontology, African beingness, existence, one whose desires are in alignment with the African cosmology, with the African culture, with African social values, customs, and traditions, one who is enwrapped in the African spiritual system, in the African culture, epistemology, and axiology. And I must make this clear that we have always been misguided about the intentions of Arabs and Europeans, and we still are to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to present you with a very brief history of our blessed people, who carry the genes of the parents of humanity, the architects of civilization, how they allow themselves to be maligned, compromised, dominated, degraded, dehumanized, and flunkified by Arabs and Europeans. Permit me to briefly enlighten you as to how the once mighty Africans allow themselves to be de-Africanized or de-spiritualized, to create a vacuum that is filled by European and Arabian spirits. Permit me to explicate what happened in the process of converting or proselytizing Africans to European and Arabian incarnates, transplanting European and Arabian minds into an African edifice still is the supreme triumph of the Western and Middle Eastern world over Africa. First came the crescent flag of the Mohammedans, the most brutal religious propagators, now called the Muslims. Their advance was a three-pronged approach: proselytize under the banner of Muslim Brotherhood, forceful conversion at sword point, intermarriage and concubinage with African women. The cross of Jesus the Christ followed the Muslim crescent, and the cloak of Christianity became a most convenient hiding place for Africans who found the Mohammedan religion unbearable or uncivilized. Thus the African jumped from the frying pan into the fire. And what the African did not know was that conversion to Arabian and European religions also meant transformation into the image of Europeans and Arabs. And that meant the dispossession, the suppression of their innate spirits to make way for Arabian and European spirits. Thus, millions of Africans became non-Africans through the colonization of information. Western and Middle Eastern religions, which are fragments and distortions on the periphery of African sacred sciences, were the weapons used to despiritualize Africans. And Africans who were neither Christians nor Muslims at the point of invasion were classified as pagans, and thereafter required to disavow their whole culture, their values, their customs, their histories, their identities, and to regard practically all African institutions as backward and savage. And I put it to you, that was psychological projection. The Africans were classified as blacks, meaning savage, primitive, backward, quasi-human. And the blacks in their own right became non-persons, despiritualized, empty vacuums, members of a people of nobodies. So hopeless that self-realization as personalities, even in a subordinate status, could only be achieved by becoming a Muslim or Christian. The barometer of their humanity was measured by their religious orientation. Sad commentary. And of course, the irony here is that the opposite is true. You see, the African who assigns his value to a religious group is in actuality a devalued African, a non-African, for all religions are anti-African. So important that we get this, no exceptions. I repeat, all religions are anti-African. And in order to destroy completely our identity spiritually and psychologically, in order to destroy our heritage, we were forced to change our names to Arabic and Christian names. And that is the first stage of the despiritualization process. We gleefully and pridefully bear the names of our enslavers, the ultimate in self-effacement that promotes self-hatred, self-abnegation, and genocide. That these spiritual and psychological shackles still handicap not only the rebirth of modern African states, but also Africans everywhere. The Africans, the name carries a spirit. To carry the names of Europeans and Arabs is to suppress our innate African spirit, to reject and kill our ancestors in cold blood. For we cannot hate Africa and not hate ourselves. To reject the essence of Africa, which is the spirit of Africa, is the same as to hate Africa. We cannot embrace the symbols of Africa and reject the spirit of Africa. The tree without roots is a dead tree. The African edifice minus an African spirit is an inconsequential African, a powerless African, an enemy of progress, a Sambo, an impediment to the advancement and development of Africa, traitors in the highest order, an ignominy to our sacred ancestors who sacrificed their lives for our human experience, our ancestors who built the roads on which we walk, whose shoulders we stand upon. To adopt and manifest European and Arabian cosmology, ontology, religions, ideology, epistemology, axiology, It's the same as rejecting one's essence, symptomatic of self-hate. You see, the African edifice that refers to themselves as British or American or Christian, which is a mask of Europeanism, or Muslim, which is a mask of Arabism, or ethnic minority and all the other derogatory labels, are the people who manifest self-hate, who manifest self-rejection, self-abnegation, devastated with the psychosis of inferiority complex. These are the people who manifest low confidence, zero self-esteem, death of nationhood spirit. We cannot run away volitionally from our land to advance European and Arabian empires and claim to be Africans. We cannot then wrap our people with European and Arabian culture and educational systems and claim to be Africans. For one cannot love their essence, their nature, and then proselytize, denounce their own systems on a conscious and subconscious level. What am I saying? I'm saying that if you adopt, as an African, if you adopt European or Arabian cosmology, ideology, religions, whether you accept it or not, it is because you undervalue your own systems, because you hate yourself. And sadly, most of us are totally unaware, totally ignorant, whether innocent or intentional, of our self-hate. And once again, you cannot hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. And dear African fanboys, you are deluded if you believe that it is the daishiki or the African cultural attire that you wear that makes you an African. You are out of your damn mind if you think that because you live or you were born in Africa, that is what makes you an African. And you are just as unintelligent if you think that your physical attributes, the visible melanin you produce, or your genetic locus is what makes you African. That is good, but that is not it. And you are absolutely crazy if you think that adopting the superficial symbols of Africa, the clothes you wear, your mother tongue that you speak, your highly melanated edifice, if you think that those are the primary indicators of our Africanness, they're not. No, ladies and gentlemen. It is the identity of the spirit that animates us. It is what is in our mind that makes us what we are. For we cannot call ourselves Africans with Arabian minds or European minds. We cannot call ourselves Africans with a Christianized or Muslimized orientation, for they are anti-African religions. Don't miss that. We cannot be Africanized Christians or Africanized Muslims. That is an awful dichotomy, an oxymoron. Oil and water does not mix, does it? It doesn't. It is either you're one or the other.